Do you believe that the war in Iran is the catalyst to start World War III or the end
I
times?
do.
Yeah.
I do. I do. And I think that that's why they do it. I think that the people in the Pentagon know that this war in Iran, it'll be a disaster because America is not ready for a war. To fight a war, you need, first of all, you need manufacturing capacity, right? You need to be able to produce bullets and tanks and planes. And America offshored its manufacturing capacity to China. There's no way that China is going to produce tanks and bullets for the American military, right? Okay, so that's issue number one, military capacity. Manufacturing capacity. Number two is political will. And the reality is that American people don't understand why America would start a war in Iran. And Americans have no ill feelings towards Iranians. Okay, it's not like Afghanistan and Iraq where Americans were gaslighted into believing that Saddam Hussein was responsible for 9/11, where Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. You could make a case against Iraq and Saddam Hussein. It's impossible for you to make a case against Iran because Iranians have been extremely cooperative. In fact, you could argue that they got out of their way to be as peaceful as possible with America because America assassinated their top general in the Middle East, General Soleimani, which is a declaration of war. Basically, it's an act of war when you kill an ambassador or an envoy of a nation, right? But the Iranians never retaliated; they never responded really. And then you have Operation Midnight Hammer. You have all these acts of provocation to invade Iran. Okay, why? Because if they're able to invade Iran, they're able to control the entire flow of Middle East oil. Also, they're able to control the active trade throughout the world, okay? Iran is really the center of the world in terms of global trade. So these two factors mean that America needs to eventually invade Iran. All right, once it invades Iran, it creates a huge problem for China and Japan and South Korea. Why? Because guess what? These three nations get most of this oil from the Middle East, right? Japan imports roughly 89% of its oil from the Middle East. And guess what, guys? Japan is the largest buyer of US dollars. So if Japan ever says, you know what, screw this, we're not buying US dollars, the American economy goes bankrupt. So when you invade Iran, you control the oil supply, you control the entire Japanese economy. You can charge whatever price you want for oil. All right, this explains the Israel-Palestine conflict. Because America just can't go invade Iran for no reason. It needs a pretext. The perfect pretext is Israel comes in conflict with Iran, Iran attacks Israel, the United States must now defend Israel because Israel is its ally. Right? Does that make sense? So America needs a scapegoat. That scapegoat is Israel. That explains why there's so much conflict right now in the Middle East. Look at this map, okay? This is Iran. It's surrounded by American bases. You have 14,000 troops in Afghanistan. You've got like thousands more over here, okay? Iran is surrounded. It seems to me that America's been preparing to invade Iran for the past 20 years. It's just looking for the perfect opportunity. All right, the problem though is that Iran is not an adversary that America can defeat. The reason why is the geography of Iran. Look at this. In 2003, America went to Iraq and destroyed Iraq. Why? Iraq's a desert. It's flat plains. America has bombs. It has fighter planes, right? It's pretty easy to destroy a desert. But Iran is all mountains. These fighter planes do no good against mountains. You can't bomb a mountain into submission. Okay? So if America were to invade Iran, there's very little chance that America would win this war. In fact, it may be the end of the American empire. And Putin has a plan, okay? Putin is a genius. He knows exactly what will happen. So Putin is preparing for this possible invasion of Iran. So this is a really important picture. Putin signed an agreement with Kim Jong-un. The agreement is something called a Mutual Defense Pact, which means that if North Korea is ever attacked, Putin would come to his aid. All right? Now, why would Putin do this? This is really strange. The answer is this. The answer is, if America attacks Iran, he needs to throw America off balance by creating a conflict somewhere else. The best place to create a conflict would be Southeast Asia. right? Now you would think, wait a minute here. Putin and China are best friends. If America invades Iran, then China may invade Taiwan. But I already told you this. China is dependent on the American economy. So I do not believe this will happen. Okay? And Putin is fairly certain this won't happen either. That's why he's now best friends with Kim Jong-un. Because Kim Jong-un, if he were to menace South Korea, that would throw the American military off balance. Because now there is war on 3 fronts: Ukraine, North Korea, and Iran. Okay? That's the grand strategy of Putin. This is his trump card. Okay, does that make sense? All right. Now, what I'm saying here is this. I'm saying, like, I know there's a lot of conflict now between China and America. There's a trade war going on. But I think this will pass. I think there'll be a rapprochement between China and America because both economies are dependent on each other. Right? So I think this friendship between Putin and China won't last very long. There's also really a lot of geopolitical reasons why this friendship won't last very long, right? Because China and Russia have a lot of geopolitical conflicts, right? They share a border. They're trying to vie for influence in in Central Asia. There's lots of reasons why, in the long term, China and Russia will eventually have to break apart, which means that Putin now sees his best friend could be Germany. Okay, these I think are going to be the 2 big geopolitical surprises in the next 5 years. First of all, America and China will become best friends, or not best friends, but they'll have a rapprochement, and then Germany and Russia will have a rapprochement. Okay. All right. So, Donald Trump, President of the United States, he wants a 3rd term. Okay. He's creating, everything he's doing right now is because he wants to be king of the United States. He wants a 3rd term, okay, for a variety of reasons. Okay, I won't go into many reasons, okay, but he's that narcissistic. He has to solve a problem. This problem is the national debt, right? It's now $37 trillion. You can't pay this off. You can never pay this off. But the theory is like, as long as you are the greatest military in the world, as long as you can go invade everyone, you don't have to pay this off. You can constantly increase this debt. Okay? That's the theory. This explains the U.S.-China trade war. Everything that we're seeing today is because Donald Trump needs to come to an agreement with China for a variety of reasons. Okay, the first reason is Trump wants to invade Iran, and so he needs to be on good terms with China. Okay? Another reason is he needs people to buy U.S. dollars. Right? And right now there's a lot of financial repression in China, meaning that you can't convert Chinese currency into US currency. American investors aren't allowed to come to China and buy up the Chinese financial system. Trump wants China to open up. Trump needs to create more interdependency between China and the United States. Okay? And that's why, for Trump, Chinese citizens and students in America is the ultimate leverage point in negotiations. Ask yourself why this is happening. Why is it that your visas are being threatened? You want to go to the United States and spend a lot of money to get an American education. But Trump is saying, no, 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 we get to go to your visa. Why is this happening? It's all part of negotiation, okay? There's no way that America will shut out Chinese students because America needs that money, okay? Well, without Chinese spending money in America, without Chinese wanting to purchase US dollars, the American economy will collapse. So there's no way that America will close its door to Chinese students. But it needs China to open up its economy furthermore to create more interdependency to save the US dollar, okay? All right, so where am I getting these ideas? Like, am I just making this stuff up? So in this class, what you're taught is that history tends to repeat itself. And by studying history meticulously and thoroughly, we can get insight into the future. So what I want to show you now is there's a direct analogy between what's happening today and what happened in Greece in about 400 BC, okay? This is Thucydides, and he wrote a very famous book called The History of the Peloponnesian War, which is what we discussed last semester. Now, the Peloponnesian War is a war between Athens and Sparta for hegemony on the Greek mainland, Okay? So in 480, Athens and Sparta were best friends. They fought against Persia, which was invading the Greek mainland. And at the Battle of Salamis, the Athenians basically destroyed the Persian navy. And the Persians were forced to retreat. But there's always a threat that Persia over here would come back and invade Athens and Sparta, okay? As well, throughout the Aegean Sea are Greek islands and colonies that are afraid of Persian hegemony. So after the defeat of the Persians, the Athenians got together with these colonies and created something called the Delian League. The Delian League is like NATO. It's a defensive alliance. If the Persians attack, then this alliance will defend together against the Persians. Now, the Athenians have the best navy at this time, and the other islands are like, we don't have a navy, but what we'll do is this, we'll give you our gold, okay? So to all these islands, they put all their wealth on a place called Delos. This is why we have the Delian League name, okay? And this money is meant as a mutual defense fund. You're not supposed to touch it unless the Persians invade, in which case you use this money to defend against the Persians. Okay, that's the idea. And this worked out well until the Athenians stole the money, right? Why? Because they wanted to create something called the Parthenon, okay, which is one of the most beautiful buildings in the world. And within the building, it's the statue of Athena. It's pure gold. Okay, so the Athenians stole all this money from Delos, from their allies, and they built this Parthenon, and the wealthy were able to steal from the Parthenon in the construction process. And so the citizens of Athens became really wealthy. It's easy money, right? And remember, easy money destroys a society. And so this is what led to the Peloponnesian War, because after Athens stole this money, it didn't apologize to its allies. In fact, it forced its allies to continue to pay tribute to Athens. Athens became a mafia state, okay? A protection racket. If you don't give us money, then we'll come invade you. And so these allies started to encourage Sparta to attack Athens, and then that's what led to the Peloponnesian War, okay? So there are three major incidents from the Peloponnesian War that I want us to focus on. The first incident is in 428 BCE, a place called Mytilene, an island. They were a former Athenian ally who refused to pay tribute. So Athenians invaded and conquered it. And now the question is, what do you do now? How do you teach these guys a lesson? How do you ensure this doesn't happen again? So one faction in Athens said, let's kill all the men. Okay? Pretty simple, right? Let's kill all the men, and then we'll spread fear among our allies, and no one will rebel against it anymore. So they have a debate, and all the citizens say, let's kill them all. So they send a trireme, a ship, to the island and to give the orders to Athenian soldiers to kill everyone. Well, not everyone, but the men, and enslave the women and the children. Okay? But after the debate, the Athenians started to talk amongst themselves, and a lot of them couldn't sleep. And they're like, this is wrong. We're Athenians. We are a democracy. We fight for freedom and liberty. We can't do this to our allies. So the very next morning, the Athenian citizens get together and says, we're going to have another debate, and we're going to discuss what to do. And so they have this huge debate, and they say, no, we're Athenians. We're virtuous. We will not do this. So they send another trireme to catch up to the first trireme. And remember, the first trireme is way ahead, right? They have a day's journey ahead. So the other trireme, they work their asses off to catch up to the first trireme, and at the very last minute, they catch up. And they tell the soldiers not to kill the men, okay? And so this is the conflict between democracy and empire, right? Now, let's fast forward to 416. And now another thing happens where the Athenians are losing this war against Sparta. It's costing them a lot of money. They're forced to melt down the statue of Athena, the goddess, and use the gold to pay for this war. Okay, and so so their attitude changes, And now they're completely a mafia state. They don't care about democracy, they don't care about virtue. All they want is for the allies to pay tribute, okay? So they go invade an island called Melos. And Melos is not part of this war. They're not part of Sparta, they're not part of Athens. They're just neutral. And then the Athenians said, we don't care, you pay tribute to us. Okay? They're basically like a mafia racket now. And the Melians say, we're neutral. You have to respect our neutrality. And the Athenians say in response, right as the world goes is only in question between equals in power, while the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must. All right? So 12 years later, the Athenians are like, screw virtue, screw democracy, screw liberty, just give us money. All right? So remember this idea. Athenians wanted the trappings of empire. They also want to feel virtuous. And over time, as Athens became more poor, they're like, screw virtue, let's have an empire. And that's why in 415, Alcibiades, who basically is a Trump of Athens at this time, okay? He says to Athenian people, hey guys, we're losing this war against Sparta, but don't worry, let's go invade more territory. Okay, so they decided to go invade Sicily, which was very wealthy. The problem, though, is that Sicily is pretty far away, okay? Remember, this is Athens. They're fighting this huge war in the Aegean Sea against the Spartans, and they're going to go and invade Sicily for its money, okay? And it's pretty far away. And it's not really well thought out. They don't really think about how to resupply their soldiers, and eventually their expedition gets wiped out at Syracuse, okay? So it's a disaster for the Athenians, and it turns the war in favor of the Spartans. Athens is so bad that everyone gets together. The entire world gets together to destroy Athens. The Persians, remember the Persians were the enemies of both Sparta and Athens, right? The Persians start to finance the Spartans. And the Spartans eventually lay siege to Athens and defeat the Athenians, okay? So, why is this important? Well, because history's going to repeat itself, okay? There's going to be a lot of similarities between the Peloponnesian War and American empire today. First similarity is NATO. Remember, the Athenians had the Delian League, and the Americans have NATO, okay? And NATO is meant to be a defensive alliance. But if that's the case, then why is it that the Nord Stream pipeline got destroyed? Remember, the Nord Stream pipeline, it sends cheap gas from Russia to Germany. The German economy is use cheap Russian resources, primarily gas, manufacturing the best cars in the world and sell to China. Okay? But because of this war in Ukraine, America not only limited, basically embargoed Russian gas to Germany, which destroyed the Russian economy, but some people even say that the Americans destroyed the pipeline. Okay, so the Americans are attacking their own allies. Trump has said that America should take over Greenland and Canada. Why? Because they're wealthy, they have lots of resources, and also they don't have really strong militaries, right? Trump, he's like a mafia godfather. America is behaving like a mafia system today. Now, what America is doing is it's forcing Europe to rearm itself. So this is Germany, and Germany, Britain, France, they've all announced this huge military budgets. And so you're like, okay, does this mean that we'll have World War III? Well, America doesn't think like that. America isn't like, let's fight Russia. America is like, how can we exploit our allies further, right? And so you can make the argument that this is not really about fighting the Russians. It's really about getting their allies, France, Germany, and Britain, to buy expensive and crappy American weapons. Remember the military-industrial complex, right? The entire point is not to fight the Russians. The Russians are just a pretext and excuse. The real purpose is to get the Europeans to buy expensive American weapons. It's really a shakedown, okay? All right, so all around the world, there's protests about what's happening in the Middle East, right? These are huge protests protesting what's happening in Gaza today. But ultimately, it's not going to matter, all right? Why? Because America's an empire. It's a mafia state. It needs to destroy Iran. in order to maintain its power, okay? So Americans want the trappings of empire. They also want to feel virtuous. That's why there's conflict right now. Over time, as America becomes poorer and poorer and more desperate, this virtue will go away. And the raw, brutal power of America will express itself throughout the world. And this will eventually lead us to the final conflict, the war between Iran and the United States. Iran has been preparing for a long time, okay? Ever since 1979, America's been preparing for a long time. This conflict is World War III. I cannot overstate how brutal this conflict will be. It will lead to fundamental changes in the world. Our lives will never be the same again. Everything that we've known in the past is now gone forever. And we have to prepare for a new future. So, I leave you with a message, okay? I know that this class has been depressing. You've been with me for a year now. It's been very depressing, okay? Because we've gone into the heart of darkness of humanity. And I know that the world looks more and more terrible. But remember this, okay? And this is my final message to you. Remember this. The greatest minds of humanity, which include Homer, Dante, Immanuel Kant, they've all told us this. They've all told us one secret of the universe, one message, which is this. The imagination is the animating force of the universe. Love is a unifying force of the universe. Okay? What this means is this. What this means is that in the darkest times, when all hope has been lost, when there's only despair, any of us, you, me, you, any one of us, can rise up, stand up, and be the light to lead humanity forward. Okay? And that's the task ahead of us if we are to save humanity in this darkest of times. Okay? So remember this. We all have the capacity to imagine. We all have the capacity to love. That's what makes us human. In the worst times, we must defend our own humanity. Okay? So that is it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and that is the facts. Those are the facts that will lead America to lose this war because according to the professor, he has explained softly and deeply as the reasons to why America is going to lose the war against Iran. First of all, we have to know that Iran is one of the biggest business economic backbone to in Middle East. So this means that all that is happening today here is that Iran is being backed by the countries that are doing business with, trading with, and they're doing a lot of things. And when you take a look at America, you know, first of all, when you have to go to the war and maybe come to win this battle, you need to have a support from home and away. Before having or without having a support from home, then this can bring any difficulty for you to win this battle. Now, today we have seen different times, in many times, when Americans are coming out to condemn America for all that they are doing, or the government that is doing. Because at this time, we saw what happened during the Venezuela intervention. The Americans themselves came out to condemn what their government did against Venezuela. Because you cannot just wake up to start bombing people who are doing their own business, who are not doing their own things, whom you are not concerned with all that they are doing, because it does not concern you. And this is what is making the Americans to go viral, to explode against Trump and his regime. Now, today what is happening is that many of the strategy and the assets that can make America to have power, they are not having by themselves. Everything that today America have and need to use, they must access to other people's, from other people's, but not from their own country as America. That's why today, when you take a look of how America is dealing with other people and how Trump is making a decision to deal with other peoples across the globe, You find that he's doing or making other decisions that even the global leaders themselves and the Western or the superior world leaders themselves are not in agreement with it, because he is many times going against the will of other people, against the will of other leaders. And now today, I just presented you a video of a Chinese professor who has put his facts clearly, trying to explain how America could lose this battle, because at this time we know that Iran is not ready to surrender. Iran is not ready to surrender. It is fighting, and they're there to make sure that they fight until the last battle. What has happened? The president was killed, but now the leaders are not ready to surrender. Just a few days ago, I've seen Donald Trump coming out to say that the American government lost their 3 military forces during this battle. We have seen 15 fighter jets being destroyed by Iranian government. We have seen different things are happening, which gives you clear that to show that Iran people or Iran government is well prepared for this war, and they are not ready quitting it soon until what is they are raising as their concerns to be heard, or to make a dialogue with America, with Israeli, with Iran, so that they can end this. Because what we know and what we believe, that all this that has started, it is going to bring a greater impact if not listened to, if the leaders are not ready to sit down and discuss this, because this will not only affect the Iranian people or the people from the Middle East. This will not only affect the people from America, but this will affect the entire global South, the entire America, the entire Europe, and the entire Africa. Because all that is happening is not all about the American people and the Iranian people, but this is all about the global security or the global peace threat. Because today we have seen how other global powers are coming in this war, are being concerned, are coming in to know or to issue some are coming to issue their help. Just like we have seen China coming in to say to stand by Russia, by Iran. We have seen China and Russia coming in to stand by Iran. We have seen many of African countries coming on back of Iran. So this means that if these things continue to go as how it is happening, then we are automatically going to have the third world country, which will affect the global peace, security, and everyone will be in danger, not only in America or in Europe. So this is why I presented you the video of this professor, so that we can all understand what is happening and what is supposed to be done, so that we can end this and be blessed wherever you're watching from. Let me have you in the comment section. You're doing great by tuning this channel, and peace out.